Well, g'day folks, and welcome back to another fish on video. Firstly, thanks to all the support on my 3 latest videos. Really appreciate it, it's been amazing. In this video, I just want to talk about the Humble Z-Man grub and the 4 ways in which I rig it to catch bream and other species.
Oh, yeah, fish on, baby.
Well, welcome back to another video, and in this video I'm just going to talk about my favourite soft plastic of the lot. It's the Z-Man 2.5 inch grub in motor oil colour. So in this video I'm just going to run over the plastic, the jig heads, and where to fish the different style of jig heads. So if you're just into soft plastic fishing or you've never fished a Z-Man grub, it gives you a little bit of an idea on where to begin. So firstly, the soft plastic. So the soft plastic is 2.5 inches long. It's got a cylinder body with ribs and a curly tail, which is about 1.5 inches long, the tail. So these are designed to mimic bait fish, or when it's sitting on the bottom, a worm like a beach worm or a sandworm. Now what I love about Z-Man is that they last forever. As long as you don't get tailored or bit off, these will last. You can glue them on the jig head, and I've had these last 4 or 5 trips and they're still great and have caught a lot of fish. So they're ultra durable, and the second thing that I love about them is the fact that with the Elastec material, they actually float. So what I mean by that is, even when you're not working the lure, if the lure's, you've hopped your jig head and it's gone down to the bottom, these are still working because they float, so that tail wafts around in the current, or just looks like a little sandworm or a feeding bait fish on the bottom, and the bream just can't resist it. There's so many times I've had bites where I've checked my phone, or I've been looking at a bird or something, feathered bird, and I've had a bite. You know, they might have been sitting on the bottom for 10 seconds. So they still work. Some people, I think, struggle with it, especially in winter, because it is kind of a slow way to fish these, but I love it. I'm fairly patient to do with fishing anyway, and yeah, I love that kind of fishing, deep winter bream fishing. So love the grubs. So that's one out of the packet. You can get these in 2 inch, 2.5. I've got some 3 inch there, and that's my favourite colour. That catches anything. That'll catch anything. This plastic, snapper, bream, flathead. All right, so the ways I rig them. So we'll go over the standard jig head. So that's the standard jig head that I would fish in open water. If I've located a weed edge that's dropped off to clear ground, clear sand, clear mud, that's where I'd throw it, in clear, fairly open areas. Otherwise you're going to get snagged up if you throw this around a lot of weed. Secondly, that's a hidden weight jig head. So the weight is actually on the shank of the hook. You tie your line off to the eye on the end there. And this is a very finesse approach. This is designed to slowly sink at more of a horizontal angle. So these are really great for throwing around pontoons, bridge pylons, rocky walls. They're a bit less prone to snagging just because the plastic sinks horizontally and the hook point stays above the plastic rather than like that. So definitely finesse if you've got bream sitting underneath pontoons directly, you know, like a couple of foot under the water. I suggest you fish as lightly as you can to the conditions, obviously wind and current, things like that, just so as this sticks in front of the bream's face. You know, if you've got it and it just drops, you've got like a 1/12 on and you've cast it out, you've got the pontoon here, the bream sitting here. If that just goes like that straight past, it's no good. Whereas if you've got a light jig head, bream sitting here, you know, swimming under the pontoon, you cast it out and it's slowly wafting down and it sits in the bream's face, then they've got more time and more chance of grabbing it. So fish as light as you can on the given conditions. So obviously if you're fishing bridge pond pylons, there's generally a lot of current with bridges. So you've obviously got to fish. There's no point fishing really light, casting out, and the plastic's 10 foot behind you by the time it's got anywhere near mid depth. So fish the weight of these to the given conditions on the day, i.e. wind, flow, and also where the fish are sitting. The fish might be sitting right up in top of the water column, so you need a light jig head to sit in their face a little bit longer. They might be fishing sitting halfway down in the water column. So you can get that bit bigger jig head just so as it gets down there a little bit faster to them. You know, you just have to weigh it out on the day. But that's also another good place. Tommy Mack has just done a fishing video on a weedy lake. So he's fishing a inland lake for bream. It's salt water, and it's really weedy. There's a lot of weed, and then all of a sudden you got these pockets of weed where it's a bit clearer. There is still a bit of weed on the bottom, but it's a lot clearer. And he's fishing the lake and casting into these pockets with this jig head, the hidden weight. I think he was fishing a 124, 120th, maximum 120th. And so this goes down and sits on top of the weed like that, and then you can hop without getting fouled up. So that's another really good place where you can use these, and I'll attach that link to his video because that's a really good demonstration of what these jig heads can do. So that's my next jig head I'm going to talk about. Now, I love these. These are bullet head. Sorry, no, they're not bullet head. They're Violence jig heads, nail bombs. And you can get them in various weights. So this is pretty much a jig head in a worm hook style. So the way I rig these up is you need to get a little bit under the chin there, just a little bit. Pull it down over that little keeper just there. And then you go back in on the underside. You go back in on the underside until you get a weedless setup like that. So the bream can't pull off the plastic because you got it on the keeper there. And that's pretty much sitting weedless. The barb of the hook's running on top of the soft plastic. So that's pretty much the rig there. And where I would use these is in really snaggy areas. So if you're fishing heavy timbered riverbank where you want to get this tied into structure for bream or say EPs, that's perfect because the shape of that hook is going to bounce across a lot of timber, and that hook point's going to be less likely to foul up. You can also fish these above weed beds. So if you've got 2 meters of water and the weed bed, tops of the weed is 1 meter deep, you can cast out and then fish these and flick and like jerk them with a little pause and fish them across the top of weed. And if you do get into the weed, more than likely you're not going to get fouled up with that plastic. My fourth and final one, which I've never used yet, which I'm really looking forward to, is these things. They're called Ned rigs. So Ned locks, Ned rigs. So they've got that really mushroomy, flat kind of base to them. And these are designed so as when you fish them and they land on the bottom, they pretty much sit like that. So due to the plastics floating, these tails will actually sit up like that. And that to me is going to be gold in winter when it's really slow fishing. You can let that plastic sit on the bottom for, 5, 6, 7 seconds and then very slowly just work it along. I'm not going to be hopping crazily with these. I don't want them doing too much. I'm probably just going to be steadily moving along the bottom and letting the plastic do most of the work. So I think that's going to be a really good jig head for winter style fishing. So that's pretty much it with the jig heads. Also use a lot of scent. Always use scent. This one I've used for 3 years and it's really good. ProCure bloody tuna. Stays on the plastic, masks human odours. And I also glue my standard jig heads and sometimes the hidden weight jig heads as well. So what I do is I get them to that stage, slightly pull it down like that, put a little dab between the plastic and the jig head, push the plastic up, leave it for a minute, and then you can fish with it and you won't have any problems with beam pants. So when you get a short strike on the tail, you don't get that. You know, you can fish that all day with confidence, and if you don't get tailed off, I guarantee you, if you're just getting brim or estuary perch, that plastic will last you all day, every day. So with the standard jig heads, the method that I use, I'm normally fishing open water. So cast it out, wind in the slack, and then watch your line as that lure sinks to the bottom. When it hits the bottom, you'll get a belly, or the line will go slack. Give it a couple of seconds, and then to start off with, I just do a single hop. Now you can vary the aggressiveness. Sometimes I just do a little sweep, or sometimes I do a quick grip where it brings the plastic up. It just it just depends on what the fish are doing on the day. Sometimes they're not chasing stuff, sometimes they're aggressive, so vary the hop. If that doesn't work, I'll do a little double hop. So your plastic's going whoop whoop, and then sinking all the time, hop, and then sink. Let that plastic come back down, hit the bottom, the line goes slack. If you get a tick, a flick in the line, or you feel a knock on the end of your rod, that's the bite, and you've got to set the hook. With the hidden weight, how I fish these is I'm fairly close to structure. You know, if I'm fishing 5 meters away, 10 meters away, flicking these into little pockets between boats and pontoons, or under boat holes where you've got shadows. Look for shadows anywhere where you've got a shadow, around pontoons, boats, any kind of bridges. You know, you're flicking into the shadows, that's where the fish are going to be, and get them as tight to structure as you can. The good thing with them is there's a lot of metal is hidden, so you can actually cast these in, punch them in, and you're not going to, you know, tap boats or spook fish by clunking these around. That's the other bonus. Get them tight to structure as you possibly can. And finally, the weedless rig, heavy snags, even heavy rock walls, heavy timbered area. I love to use these around heavy timber where you've got big trees and branches in the water. You can cast these in tight, get it as tight as you can, and work them slowly through. Either slowly wind them through, or little twitches. You know, try and find that depth where the fish are sitting. They might be on the bottom, they might be on top surface of the water. If they're on the surface, go a little bit lighter weight. Soon, you know, give it a second when it hits the water, and then slowly roll it back and just twitch it back. Or sometimes you might have to let them hit the bottom, pick the pockets, let them hit the bottom, and then slowly wind it back, or hop it back. Little hops, little wriggles, trying to imitate a wounded bait fish, and that'll get your fish. So that's it. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope it's given you some insight into how you can rig and use these grubs. Thanks for watching, and hit the like and subscribe. It's free to subscribe to the channel, so make sure you do that. Give it a thumbs up, and if you could leave a comment and a bit of feedback on the video, that would be awesome. Thanks a lot. See you soon.